So Apple gave us iOS users this nice iOS 8 update, but unfortunately, for most people, they had to delete a lot of their stuff off of their devices in order to meet the 4 GB requirement for iOS 8 installation if they're going to do it as a OTA update, over-the-air update. But, you know, now Apple has to face a lawsuit due to the amount of space iOS 8 takes up on people's devices. So yes, Apple is facing another lawsuit, but then again, how is that new in any way? Because first of all, Apple's not the only one that are facing lawsuits. In fact, Apple has faced multiple lawsuits, more significantly the ones against Samsung, and then Samsung back to Apple, and then Apple, with HTC. Every company out there has faced multiple lawsuits, but this one is basically on themselves. And who's suing them? I'm still not understanding what that is. It sounds like a consumer, but I would doubt it. But yeah, since iOS 8 does take up a lot of space on iOS devices, if you're going to do it as an over-the-air update, that's what Apple's being sued for. But there are a few things that must be understood why this software update takes up this amount of space on the devices. So the way the iOS 8 update worked, and I'm assuming this was the same for all the other updates out there ever since Apple started doing over-the-air updates from iOS 5, is because all the contents that are put together into this one little file, and that whole file is compressed. And so then once that file is compressed, that way you'll be able to install the update, and your device must have enough room in order to handle the uncompressed file and the the compressed file and then the uncompressed contents within the file. I knew this by doing more research, and I'll tell you what, I also complained about that too when I had to delete a lot of the stuff in order to install iOS 8 on my iPod before I had the iPhone 5, but after reading this, now I do get a better understanding of it. Is it a good move? That really doesn't matter, because Apple or companies in general are doing whatever they can in order to get these updates pushed out to people and have customers or the consumer use their devices on the latest updated version of the mobile operating system. But in a way, sometimes you don't want to update. For me, there are going to be times where I don't want to update this thing, because as updates progress, this thing's going to get slow eventually. Just like the iPhone 4, that ran iOS 4 when it first came out, that worked fine. iOS 5, it worked fine. iOS 6, it worked fine, but it started to lag a little bit, and then when iOS 7 came, that thing was just horrible. But I will tell you this, it runs better than the iPhone 3G running iOS 4.1.2. That was a lot worse. The only reason why I'm doing it on this phone is because, let's say if I'm not on a certain version of iOS and there's an app I want to download, it's going to say you can't download this app until you upgrade your version to iOS, whatever the future update it requires, or the future version it requires. And I feel like with Android, not to say that this is 100% sure or not, because I don't use Android too often. However, I am using an Android tablet recently. It's not mine, but somebody let me borrow it for me to use it for certain circumstances. So eventually I have to get that thing back. But because that tablet is not running Lollipop and is not running KitKat, I believe that thing was running Jelly Bean. I don't know, but to me that runs fine. And so far, every app that I've downloaded on that device, it works. So, but then again, don't quote me on that because I'm not a heavy used Android user and I don't know too much about it. Maybe it's the same thing with iOS. I just don't know how to update the darn thing. That's probably why. But again, I force myself to update these devices so that way I can download any of the latest apps that are out there. And one question that I have in my mind is if I really want to update this thing to iOS 9, because iOS 9 is when the iPhone 5, that's the iPhone 5 right there, is gonna suck, and it's gonna make me hate it just as much as I did to the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 3G. So what do you guys think about this lawsuit Apple has to face with iOS 8 taking up a lot of space? Me personally, I really don't know about this because companies in general are doing whatever they can to make money, because that's why they got into business in the first place, for money. And that is a good business choice but bad for the consumer. And it's hard to make choices that are both good for the business and the consumer at the same time. Then again, I don't know, every company just has their own way of doing things, so really I feel like we can't really fight for this one, so we'll just have to wait to see the outcome of whether Apple won or lost the case. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.